I took a DNA test for fun. What I found destroyed 3 marriages. I didn't take the DNA test looking for answers. If anything, I took it because I thought I already had them. My name's Ryan. I'm 31. I live in Evanston, Illinois, about 20 minutes north of Chicago. I work in cybersecurity, mostly remote these days. I fix systems people don't know are broken. And that's kind of how I live. Structured, invisible, controlled. I've always been the quiet one in the family. Not awkward, just filtered. The kind of kid who memorized license plates on family trips. Who needed rules for rules. Who hated group projects because someone else could mess it up. My parents, Craig and Denise, met in college and married young. They've been together for nearly 40 years. Still live in the red brick house on Maple Lane where I grew up. Still use the landline. Still argue over gas prices like it's a competition. My dad's 63, ex-Air Force, now runs logistics at a local shipping company. He believes in work, weather forecasts, and not talking about feelings. My mom's 61, retired school teacher, obsessed with Facebook recipes and dog videos. She's the passive-aggressive notes on the fridge type. We never fought, but we also never talked about anything real. I have one younger sister, Amanda. She's 28 and completely unlike me. Outgoing, fearless, sarcastic. She works in public relations and lives downtown with her girlfriend, Sophie, who makes artisan soap and has better skin than anyone I know. We talk, not daily, but often enough. She knows how I think, sometimes better than I do. Anyway, none of us are particularly close, but we're fine. At least we were. All of this started on a Sunday morning in January. I was sitting in my kitchen eating cold, leftover pasta directly out of the container and scrolling through my email. I'd been getting ads from this genetic testing company for weeks. Unlock your family story. Learn what makes you unique. All that crap. I ignored it until I saw one subject line. Use your DNA to personalize your nutrition. Get 20% off. Look, I'm not proud of how easy I am to manipulate when there's a discount involved. But I clicked, filled out the form, spit in the tube, sent it off. I honestly forgot about it. A few weeks later, I got the notification. Your DNA results are ready. I didn't open it right away. It sat in my inbox for 5 days. I told myself I was busy. I wasn't. I just didn't care. Then one night, I was half watching a documentary and absent-mindedly clicked the email. At first, it was what I expected. 52% Northwestern European, 24% Irish, 11% Scandinavian. Predicts I have straight brown hair and dislike cilantro. Both true. Likely to be introverted. Nailed it. I skimmed past most of it, just mildly amused. Then I saw a tab labeled DNA Relatives. That's when I stopped scrolling. There, at the very top of the list, above second cousins and distant matches, was one profile. It was flagged. Close family, parent, child, or sibling match. Not Amanda, not my mom, definitely not my dad. I frowned. Clicked to expand. Name, Mark Holloway. Age, 59. Location, Wisconsin. Profile visibility, public. His photo was professional, taken against a bookshelf, wearing a navy blazer. The kind of guy you'd expect to sell insurance or teach business ethics. I didn't recognize him. But according to the test, he shared 50% of my DNA, parent level, and that made no sense. I didn't sleep the night I saw the match, not because I was panicking, not yet, but because something deep inside me had shifted, like the frame of a house settling unevenly. Nothing had fallen, but everything was off. I lay in bed, watching the ceiling fan spin, thinking in circles. Who was this man? Why was he there? At 3:42 a.m., I got up and made black coffee. I didn't even touch it. I just stood in the kitchen watching it steam. By 8 a.m., I had gone through every emotion. Disbelief, curiosity, anxiety, guilt, as if I was the one keeping a secret. That's when I called Amanda. She answered with a tired voice and asked why I was calling so early. I told her that I got the DNA results last night and found something weird. She asked what kind of weird. I explained that the site matched me with someone named Mark Holloway and flagged him as a close family match, someone who shares 50% of my DNA. Amanda asked if I was joking or if this was some kind of prank. I told her I was serious, that I had double-checked everything and that the match was real. Mark Holloway was a verified user with a public profile. Amanda asked if he was a cousin or something. I told her no, that 50% meant either a parent or a full sibling. She went quiet for a moment before saying that didn't make any sense because I wasn't adopted, right? I didn't answer that right away. Then Amanda asked if I recognized the name. I told her no, I'd never seen or heard it before. Amanda said that I should call the DNA company just to confirm the numbers and added that I shouldn't tell mom or dad anything yet, at least not until I knew more. I agreed. I told her I wasn't jumping to conclusions, but something didn't feel right. She said, "If it's legit, You'll need to be prepared for what comes next." We ended the call. Afterward, I opened my laptop again and went to the site. I didn't look at Mark's photo this time. I clicked into the family tree section. The automated chart placed Mark directly above me, not next to me, not somewhere off to the side, above me, as in parent. I closed the laptop and stepped back from the desk. My chest felt tight. Not like I couldn't breathe, but like I had to concentrate just to stay grounded. I opened the window and stood there for a while, letting cold air hit my face. Then I pulled out a storage bin from my bedroom closet. I hadn't touched it in years. Inside were photo albums, school awards, report cards, random stuff from childhood that I never threw away. I found one album labeled Door County, Summer '93. I opened it slowly. Pages of beach photos, my dad holding me in a folding chair. Amanda, tiny and sunburned, with a popsicle melting down her arm. My mom laughing in a blue tank top. And then, on the second to last page, a group photo on a pier. To the left, almost out of frame, stood a man I didn't recognize. He wasn't posing, he wasn't looking at the camera, but he was standing next to my mother. His hand was resting lightly on her shoulder. His body leaned toward her. I stared at his face for a long time. Then I opened the laptop again, went back to the match page, and confirmed what I already knew in my gut. It was him. I didn't want to believe it. So I closed the album, sat on the carpet, stared at the wall. I told myself I could be wrong, that the lighting was bad, that I hadn't seen this guy in the right context. But my brain was already working against me, replaying 1,000 quiet moments from childhood with new suspicion. Little things. How Mom always seemed just a little too tired in family photos. How Dad sometimes walked into the room and stopped mid-step when she was on the phone. How there were certain years where he worked late every night, and she never seemed lonely. I didn't want to go there. But I was already there. I knew I needed answers. But I didn't want to break anything that couldn't be fixed. So I didn't rush to my parents' house. I didn't storm in demanding explanations. Instead, I waited a day. I went to work. I answered emails. I sat through meetings and nodded at words I didn't hear. That night, I made dinner and didn't eat it. I lay in bed with the light off, phone in my hand, staring at the screen until it dimmed. I didn't text Amanda again. I wasn't ready for her reaction if this became real. By the next evening, I couldn't take the pressure anymore. I needed to see something in someone's face. Some flicker of truth, or fear, or denial. So I drove out to my parents' place just before sunset. The snow was still fresh on the sidewalks. Their house looked the same as always. The porch light was on. The flag out front still waved in the winter wind. But everything felt off, like walking into a familiar room after someone rearranged the furniture. I rang the bell. My mother opened the door with a smile. She said, "This is a surprise." I told her I just wanted to stop by. I had something on my mind. She stepped aside and told me to come in. Inside, the house smelled like rosemary and lemon cleaner, always spotless, always quiet. She asked if I wanted something to drink. I said just water. She moved to the kitchen while I stood by the front windows, pretending to admire the snow. My heart was racing. My hands were sweating. I had no plan. She came back with a glass and asked what was going on. I said I'd taken one of those DNA tests. She raised her eyebrows slightly and said, "Those things were interesting." She asked if I learned anything surprising. I told her I matched with someone I didn't know, a man. She asked what kind of match. I said a close one, 50% DNA, parent level. She didn't speak. She just looked down at her hands. I added that the man's name was Mark Holloway. My mother said she didn't know anyone by that name, but I saw it, that fraction of a second where her eyes went wide, then narrowed almost instantly. Her hands clenched ever so slightly, and the way she said she didn't know him, it was too smooth, too practiced. I told her the test placed him as a possible parent. She said, "Those things aren't always accurate." I said this one was. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at me like she wanted to be angry, but couldn't figure out how to justify it. I asked if there was something she wanted to tell me. She didn't answer. She just turned and walked back toward the kitchen. She didn't look at me when I said his name again. She kept rinsing a mug that didn't need rinsing. Her back was turned, her voice gone. I waited for something, anything. But the silence kept growing like a crack in glass. I asked her, "Did you love him?" She didn't flinch. I stepped closer and said, "I'm not judging you. I just want to know the truth. Did Dad know about him?" Still nothing. The only sound in the room was water hitting porcelain. And then I said, "Is he my father?" She turned off the faucet slowly, dried her hands. Still didn't face me. When she finally spoke, her voice was flat. She said, "There are things that don't need to be talked about. You're my son. That's what matters." I stared at her back like it might open up and explain everything. She said nothing else. I realized I wasn't going to get more. Not now. Maybe not ever. I left without another word. She didn't follow me to the door, didn't ask where I was going, didn't say goodbye. The air outside was sharp and quiet. I sat in my car for a full minute, gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what had just happened. It wasn't denial. It wasn't shock. It was refusal. She knew. She just wasn't going to say it out loud. Back home, I went straight to my laptop. I needed to stop circling. I needed data. Proof. Something that didn't hide behind silence. I opened the DNA site again, went to the Shared Matches tab and scanned the list. Halfway down, a name stood out like a warning light. Rachel Holloway, age 33. Location, Minnesota shared. DNA 22% predicted. Relationship, half-sibling. My pulse jumped. It wasn't just a theory anymore. He had other children. I clicked on her profile, but it was private. No photo, no information, nothing. Still, it was real. A second family. That was one marriage. Mine. Cracking. But his was next. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept opening the app, refreshing Rachel's profile like something new would magically appear, but it was locked. No photo, no bio, just her name, age, and location. Minnesota. That was it. Still, it was more than enough. If the system predicted her as my half-sister, then Mark Holloway hadn't just been part of my life. He'd built another one, somewhere else, at the same time. That made everything more real, more dangerous. Because if Rachel existed, that meant this wasn't just some one-time secret. This was a parallel track, a second life. And now I was holding the map that connected them. I stared at the screen long after it went dark. The next morning, I sat down at my desk with one goal: find her. I opened every browser tab I could. Searched for Rachel Holloway, Minnesota. It didn't narrow much. There were dozens, maybe more. So I added age filters. Birth year, 1990 to 1992. That cut the list in half. Then I used tools I'd picked up from years of harmless internet creeping, background databases, wedding registries, even local news mentions. Slowly, faces and fragments came together. And then I found her. It was a Facebook profile, Rachel M. Holloway, living in Minneapolis. The profile photo was an old family Christmas picture, blurry but unmistakable. There were 5 people: a man, a woman, 2 kids in sweaters, and a girl around 10 years old. The man was Mark, older now, gray at the temples. But it was him. And this time, he was sitting beside a woman with her hand on his leg. His wife? My stomach turned. I scrolled down, not many posts. But one stood out, dated 5 years ago. Hard to believe it's been 2 years since Dad passed. Miss you every day, old man. Mark was dead, which made all of this even harder. I couldn't reach out to him, I couldn't ask him anything, I couldn't hear his side. The only person left was Rachel. I hesitated before messaging her. What was I supposed to say? Hi, I think we might share a father you never knew had another family. Or worse, one he lied about. Still, I had to try. I kept it short. Hi, Rachel. I hope this doesn't come off too strange. My name is Ryan. I recently took a DNA test and it matched us as half-siblings. I'm just trying to understand some family connections. No pressure to respond, but I'd really appreciate it if you did. I reread it 10 times before hitting send. Then I closed my laptop, stood up, and walked around the apartment like I was waiting for an earthquake. Hours passed. I tried to focus on work, emails, anything, but my thoughts kept circling that one message. Around 6:40 p.m., I got the notification. Rachel had replied, "Hi." Yeah, I was wondering when someone from his other side would eventually show up. I guess it finally happened. I blinked at the screen, then read it again. His other side? I'm not trying to intrude, I replied. I didn't know. I just found out last week. Her next message came faster. I believe you. You sound way too stunned to be lying. I'm guessing you just found out who your real father was? Yeah, Mark. I just saw his photo last week. There was a pause. Then Rachel wrote, My mom found out about your mom when I was 12. She kicked him out for a while. They tried therapy. Didn't work. She divorced him 3 years later. I stared at the message. My heart was racing. That was it. That was the first marriage destroyed. Rachel added, It messed me up for a long time. Not gonna lie. Especially when I found out there might be other siblings out there. You're not the first one who's reached out. I froze. Not the first? I stared at Rachel's last message for a long time. You're not the first one who's reached out. There was a chill in that sentence I hadn't expected. Not anger, not surprise, just fatigue. Like she'd had this conversation before. I asked her, Who else reached out? Rachel replied, Another guy. About a year ago. Said the test showed a 25% match. Half-sibling. His name was Dylan. I asked where he was from. She said, California. I think LA. He said he'd just learned who his biological father was. Sound familiar? I didn't reply right away. I needed a second. Rachel followed up. He said his mom never told him who his dad was. Took the test for fun and found me, then found Mark's name in our shared matches. Said he looked the guy up, recognized the eyes. That stopped me. Recognized the eyes. It felt too familiar. Like deja vu, but worse. I asked Rachel if she knew more. She said, he told me his mom was married. At the time, to someone else. She never knew Mark had a wife or kids. She only found out after the funeral when the estate people contacted her. I leaned back in my chair. That was it. The third marriage. Mark hadn't just lied to his family in Wisconsin. He hadn't just lied to my mom. He'd embedded himself into someone else's life under a different context. A man no one questioned. A man with just enough distance, just enough detachment to live multiple realities. I asked Rachel, did you stay in touch with Dylan? She answered, not really. We talked a few times, but honestly, it was too much. We were both pissed, confused, and it just felt messed up. Like we were reading from different pages of the same book, but couldn't agree on the plot. I thanked her for telling me. She replied, don't thank me. You didn't ask for this. Neither did I. Then she added something else. I hated him for a long time. Still kinda do. But now I mostly feel sorry. The guy didn't know how to stop lying. He didn't know how to stay in one place. He just kept running, even when he had everything. I didn't answer right away, because I didn't know what to say. I was still trying to decide how I felt. Angry? Not really. Betrayed? Sure. But the feeling that overpowered everything else was absurdity. It was surreal. 1 DNA test, 3 families, 3 lives, and none of them had the full picture. Later that night, I pulled out a notepad and made a list. 1, my mom. 2, Rachel's mom. 3, Dylan's mom. 3 women, all with kids, all connected to the same man. And suddenly I realized something else. I had no idea how many more were out there. I waited a week before going back to the house. Not because I was afraid, I just needed time. Time to let the weight settle, to understand what it meant to hold a truth no one else had asked for. I needed to know whether I was coming for answers, or just closure. My mother opened the door with the same cautious calm she always used when something fragile was behind her eyes. She didn't ask why I was there. I didn't explain. We both knew. She gestured me in. I walked past the foyer and stopped just inside the living room. She stayed a few steps behind, as if we were standing on opposite shores of something too wide to cross. I found Rachel, I said. Her eyes barely moved. I continued. She told me about her mom, the divorce, everything. My mother nodded once, slowly, like she'd been holding that breath for decades. I also found out about Dylan, I added. Another half-sibling. Different woman, California, same story. She closed her eyes for a moment, then looked at me with something I hadn't seen before. Not shame, not sorrow. Resignation. I always knew there'd be a day like this, she said. I just didn't know who it would hurt the most. I asked her, why didn't you ever tell me? She looked down and whispered, because it was never just about you. She sat down on the edge of the couch. Her hands trembled slightly in her lap. I was young, she said. He was someone I trusted. He made me feel seen. Your father and I weren't married yet. We were on and off. I didn't think it would matter. Her voice cracked. But it did. And when I found out I was pregnant, I knew what the right thing was. I chose your father. I chose the life we built. I didn't interrupt. She added, I thought if I buried it deep enough, it would stay quiet forever. I sat across from her and said, he lied to everyone. She nodded. I know. I said, I'm not here to punish you. I just needed to understand. She looked at me, eyes red but steady. And do you? I paused. Then I said, I understand why you kept it from me, but I still have to live with it. I left before dinner. Dad was in the garage, working on something when I got there. I didn't go see him. I couldn't. He didn't know. And I wasn't going to be the one to tell him. He had raised me with love, with patience, with pride. None of that changed. He didn't deserve to have his memories rewritten, so I carried the truth out with me, alone. Later that night, I sat at my kitchen table with the lights off and the window open. The cold crept in quietly, but I didn't move. I just listened to the quiet. 3 families, 3 broken homes, 1 man who scattered pieces of himself across state lines and timelines and never stayed long enough to clean them up. So now I'm asking you, yeah, you, listening to this, what would you have done? Would you have told your father? Would you have protected him from the truth? Would you have burned everything down or walked away? Because I still don't know if I made the right call. But here's what I do know. Once you open the door to truth, you can't close it again. You either step through it or live forever pretending you didn't see what was inside.